we are here. We are back. This is That's Dope. I'm Rashad Taylor. I got my guy here. I feel good about this one because this is kind of a mentor of mine in a way, somebody I've had as a part of my life since I was, 13, 8th grade, like my 8th grade football, at least one of them. Now he is the director of strategic initiative with Self-Enhancement Incorporated, content and program director for the Numberz, I believe.
Well, co-founder.
Co-founder. Oh, we're gonna get and that's also on here.
Yeah. I don't manage the music no more.
One of those things. But
listen, all we would have is Too Short 24/7. So we had to let somebody else do the content.
And I don't think anybody would have a problem with a 24/7 block of Too Short, at least for a week. I guarantee you would get, that'd be the most listened to week that you have. But I got my guy here, Mr. Anthony Deloney. What's going on, my dude?
What's up, family? What's up, my guy? Thanks for having me.
Man. Chilling, bro. I just, want to start this thing. And like I said, my whole thing is wanting to put dope people, wanting to interview people that are doing some great things in our community. And a lot of times those people kind of get overlooked, and especially as we talk about like a huge organization like SEI. And, major shout out to Tony Hobson Sr. and everybody.
Absolutely.
Great things over there. But sometimes we miss a lot of the people that are doing that groundwork to kind of make things happen. And then you've seen a lot. You've been in this city for a long time. You've been able to some great people, some great leaders come through and out, man. I'm just curious right now for what you do, because your job is to make sure you go out and build those partnerships with people. Man, how has the quarantine kind of affected your ability to really move around and make those relationships? Because it's a person-to-person type thing.
Crazy. It's crazy, bro. So I think when it first happened, like everybody else, man, we was stuck. Like Chuck, like what are we about to do? What does this look like? And I think the term you keep hearing is, what's the new normal? Like what does this really mean, and what does this look like? And I think the first week was scary because nobody knew, how we're going to keep this thing rolling. But I think, shout out to, SEI and the leadership team at SEI. We were already in the process of doing a lot more of these Zoom and virtual meetings and video stuff that, is not a lot of people's, bailiwick. That's not how they move. That's not how they get down. And so we had kind of started the process just a little bit of doing more and more virtual things and things on video. And so we were, one of the first people in all the networks that I move in to do, for instance, I think by the 4th day, we had an all-staff SEI meeting with 165 people in the meeting, right? Nobody was doing that. People were really figuring out how to do this. And I think because we had a mini head start, we were able to do that. And so I think what you saw was this momentum of everybody catching on. I was like, you know what? We can do this. And I would tell you, fast forward to now, to be honest, I think I'm working harder than I ever had because part of my job literally is to be in meetings, set up meetings, and to talk to people, right? That's a huge part of my job. And, there were some physical limitations around who you could talk to because everybody wasn't moving this way. You fast forward to now where, I'll have a day from, 9 to 5 with 20 minutes of dead time in there where it's back to back to back. And beforehand it was, if I had a meeting from 9 to 11, I couldn't get over to that next meeting till 12. Well, as soon as I hang up here, I can be in that next spot, and then I can be in that next spot. And so it's actually made it a lot more efficient to be able to connect to people when you want to. Who is that? Tell myself. Is that the little homie?
Nowhere.
Is that my guy?
Awesome. Yeah, that is my guy. And he just was determined to tell me that someone has something for me over here. He knows when the light is on and the
Hey man, look, these the new rules, bro. Listen, one of the first things I saw when all this happened, I'm in a meeting. It's the mayor's in there. It's all the who's who and presidents of this company and everything else. This lady was talking. I ain't gonna put no names out there. But her kid was just, She said, I'll be right back, y'all. Man, I promise you, when whooped her kid in the back. You didn't hear hear all that. But it was clear she came back. She had a little couple beads of sweat right there. The baby got a whooping during the Zoom meeting.
I'm telling you, I've had to put my camera and microphone on mute a couple times to conversation with my son just mid every.
Right.
Again, it'll be in the middle of a meeting with like
Hey man, these kids
Superintendent
don't.
Reynolds and all of something like, hey man, like,
Hey,
what do you want, bro? Like,
these kids don't give a damn. They're like,
and
Daddy,
don't
that's
want
the
nothing,
TV room.
and don't want nothing. You know what I mean? He's got his own room with the
Right.
and the
Right. Hey
that you can
man,
ask for. He don't really want
you
nothing
can
but
come see
attention. But
Daddy.
I understand that, man. But how's that for you? Because you also have you got a little dude still at the house, man. You got a middle school
Yes.
student that's just probably going bored out of their mind. Like how
Listen, man. So
right now,
he's right
especially
here. So first of all, it's crazy because I got him. He's a sixth grader. I got my college student came home because they closed up school. So he's
everybody.
back in the house, right? And for instance, the middle schoolers got work that he has to do and turn in once a week, but the actual being in the class is kind of optional. If you know your stuff, you can do your work and really not have as much contact with the teacher. This dude is turned into a vampire. So literally, somehow his clock is switched where he wants to stay up all day. He's up till 3 and 4 in the morning. Then he's sleeping in like he went to the club. So he's not getting up till 2 and 3. It's crazy. So there's just this weird kind of, what I'm saying, slow motion quicksand we're kind of in. But overall, I mean, they love being around each other. They think it's thieves. They've had a lot of reconnection that they've had to do. And as long as he's handling his work at this point, man, I'm not about to,
I feel you. Like my little dude has got to get up every morning right around like, I think his class starts at 10 and he's showing me, oh, that's awesome, bro. He still not hearing that I'm just over here doing something else. He wants to still show me, but he has.
And let him show you. That's my guy.
Yeah, I'm not tripping. Do your thing. But he has class that he has like, at 10 o'clock and every day he knows he's got to be up at 10, but he wants to be up till 2. Man,
in the club.
The other day and he thinks he slipped. And so I came in the room and he put the cover over his head real fast just to make sure. It's like 2 in the morning. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? And he didn't respond like he was asleep. He's not slick, but yeah, that whole time. But you're going to wake up at 10. That's for sure. You're going to get up.
Hey, man, it's a new day and age, man. We trying to figure it out, too.
I've got a newfound respect for teachers and everything they go to because I've been trying to teach for this hour and a half, and I'm ready to hand in my 2 weeks because the teaching life kind of isn't for me, man. Deloney, you've been in for a long time. You went to Grant, spent time at Willamette for college and everything, and then really spent a lot of the bulk of your work life right in Northeast Portland, man. What's the difference now in trying to build those relationships with people around the neighborhood in this new Portland?
Oh man, I think the biggest thing is when I first started, I could do most of my work, from right a 20 block radius for the most part, right? I mean, I could do most of what I did in that small thing because it was a given that most of the people we're working with they lived in Northeast, they went to school in Northeast, right, and that's where they did all their stuff, whatever that may be, whether that's work, school, partnerships, all that stuff was right here. And so, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I saw that, now we kind of take for granted, but you're talking to somebody and you know where you at, right? I'm on 167th and Stark, right? Oh, I'm over in Vancouver. Oh, I'm over in the deep north, right? I'm over in Milwaukee, right? Right. So when you just think about how people have dispersed, right, it's just harder. It's harder to figure out where people are, where do they need services, what's the network, right? My network that I had established in Northeast, right, ain't the same network that I don't have it like that in Milwaukee. You see what I'm saying? So it's a lot of different work. It's a lot of starting over, right? I mean, at one point, let's just take SEI. Man, we had Boise, Humboldt, Ockley, Vernon, right? All these schools that we did our work that we had, we knew the principal, by first and last, where her address is. We're like this based on that relationship. That's just over. And even the demographics of those schools, right? You just take David Douglas on paper is the most diverse school, right, in the state, right? Not Jeff.
Still, it don't look like that when you walk through there.
Right? Not Jeff though, not Grant. right? It's David Douglas. So all of a sudden, we got to pay attention and figure out what the politics are at David Douglas, for instance. So we said it's a new landscape.
Do you think, they talk about the Black community a lot, and in most cases it's a lot of the, kind of more urban organizations or, community organizations that are around that kind of make up the Black community. What does that mean to you? And is there one that's still here in Portland?
That's a tricky question. I think that, obviously there is a Black community. We're walking around, right? I think it's a two-part piece, right? Are there Black people? Yes. But I think the trickier part is, where is the community?
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is,
because it used to be like up and down Alberta. It used to be, Killingsworth.
Yeah.
It used to be in parts of Ainsworth. Now it's like,
yeah.
it's few and far between to see.
That's
like,
over.
Yeah. Dawson's Park is about the Black.
That's over. Right. And so there was a time where you didn't have to organize nothing. You didn't have to, right, say, hey, everybody on Facebook, we're going to the zoo, right? It was already happening. Like if there was things going around in certain spots because that was the community. And so I think that's changed. I mean, and we can talk about all the reasons how we got there, but that wasn't overnight. That was unfortunately intentional. It happened over a long period of time. And I think that's, where we are now is trying to pick up the pieces and figure out how do we create community for the Black folks that are here, right? I mean, the numbers say we are here, but it's like I said, always say, we've been dispersed. And so how do we figure out and to bring us back together, and how are the different ways that we can do that?
We talk about community, and a big part of our community in Northeast has always been sports. Sports has always been something that our students, ourselves, have always been a part of. Like, again, you were a coach of mine when I was 13 years old, and here it is, I'll be 37, here within this week, and things are different, but you've been a part of so many students and their growth as athletes. Look, what are you most proud of as either a coach or a parent or just a community member that's really seen or been a part of some great sports teams through youth baseball, youth basketball, and football?
Oh man, that's a great question. If you say what am I most proud of, and I guess I would say happy to be a part of, was, there was a time, again, I like I said in the last part, is that, this gentrification didn't happen overnight. This was a long, kind of drawn out kind of thing that happened. And so there was a time where, the Pee Wee League, the stuff that you were playing, Pop Warner, right? Baseball, it was just going away, right? Because, we didn't have the same sponsors for whatever reason. It was one of those things that because it was just sports, people weren't paying attention to. So baseball was gone, right? The football was gone, except for, one or two different places to play. And so one of the things that we did way back, probably 2002, 3, right in there, was we at SEI started our own leagues, right? Well, not our leagues, we started teams to compete in those because they just weren't happening. So we built baseball teams. We built football teams to make sure that our kids in our community still had the opportunity to play, because they had so many restrictions, even for the kids that wanted to play, where you can only play with these dudes that live out in Roosevelt, right? Even though you live on 15th. And so you can't play with these guys. You have to play over here. And all the, kids are like, well, yeah, no thanks. Parents are like, no thanks. And so we formed some leagues where kids could play soccer, baseball, football, volleyball. We did some track. And for a lot of years, we kind of held up the bridge, right? And shout out to Marshall Haskins, who came on board with the PIL and kind of took those things, consolidated them. So now you have, right, youth football at all the high schools. You got youth basketball so they picked up that slack. But for a long time, there was a void. Nobody was doing it. And so I'm very proud of the fact that we were able to build up those teams, keep kids active, keep kids in the community, playing, competing, having fun. And a lot of those kids, right, are doing some big things right now. So we're super proud and excited and glad that we were a part of that.
One of those teams you got a chance to really work with as a coach, and then obviously having a son play for them was ICP. And so you have to give a shout out to Kane and Chapman. Really talk about how important that team was to really, if you look at the where youth sports are now, a lot of these young men that are maybe have just graduated high school or just about to graduate, a lot of those guys played for ICP. A lot of them came through the system and stuff like that. Explain how important something like that to be able to kind of groom like really the next.
So obviously, super huge shout out to Kane and Chapman, and Jeffrey was right in there with us.
McGee, absolutely.
Jeffrey McGee, Donnie Wilcher, right, as one of the key trainers. And so super quick story is that, I didn't even really know what like AAU elite basketball was. I used to kind of watch when AD first started playing, and some of the upper levels of basketball. And I used to think, well, dang, why are they playing so much? It's just basketball. Why do they practice 4 times a week? What's going on? And so I remember watching Biddy Ball, and AD was playing at the Sal, and he was really good. Like for a little guy, I was like, okay. And he loved it so much. It's like, man, he wants to play more than once a week at the Sal at 9 in the morning. I want more. This ain't enough for me. And that's kind of where my first connection was. I've known Kanan, man, my whole life really. I mean, him going through he's a year older, so our past went back and forth for years and years and years. And he started that program, and I watched it from afar. When AD first got with him, it was funny. AD was only in the 2nd grade. A lot of people don't know this. And so Khalil, the youngest team, was 3rd graders. And so for a whole year, Kanan just took AD with his 3rd graders and just let him play, with them. And it kind of blossomed from there. And I was never a coach. Actually, the coach that was supposed to coach the team had some issues with his pops and had to take off. And that's kind of how I jumped into the coaching, was like, if you want your son to play, you about to coach this team. And I was like, well, let's see what I got. And
I guess that
was kind of the innocent start. And things kind of grew from there. And so, you for us, like I didn't know how, and Kanan is an SEI kid. So we come from, right, SEI Camps, SEI view of raising kids and all the fundamental beliefs and seeing kids for who they can become versus who they are and all those things. And so that was really the foundation. And Kanan was doing it long before I got there. I mean, his oldest is, grown, playing overseas now. And so that was the model that I stepped into. So it wasn't hard because I already understood the model and the approach that they were trying to get to already. And so those kids jumped on board, man. And the one characteristic I will say is that all the ICP kids, whether they played, more basketball down the road, they knew how to compete. They knew how to work hard. They were never gonna be outworked. And I'll tell you a quick story and I'll wrap this up. I remember telling AD that if you can play for Kanan, right, then there won't be ever a coach that you'll have a problem with, because he's going to give it to you, right?
That's for sure.
And so I got a call this year while he was at Vermont, and the coach had lit into him. He was like, man, coach went off today. I was like, dang, for real? He's like, man, he went around the room, dude lit him up. I mean, mind you, these are dudes that, one of these dudes could possibly go to the NBA.
Of course, yeah.
He lit him up, went around the room. And I was like, that's a trip. He was like, but what nothing I ain't heard from Kanan, right? And that, to me, justified that whole arc of why, we went that direction in the first place. And so it was major love, and I was right. It was nothing that he hadn't heard before.
You mentioned those SEI camps, and there was a time, and I'm going to ask you if you still think we're in that time, that was really a proven ground. If you're a ball player, like if you said you were good, you went to one of those PIL schools or one of the schools just outside of the PIL, but still lived in Portland, this was the major proving ground for yourself. Is that still the case? Do you think that's still the case as far as all the developers really coming and making sure they kind of?
No. Now, look, I say that to say, when we were young going through the camps, there was not a whole lot of other camps, right? Affordable camp, like extra affordable, free, right? And so there wasn't a lot in that lane. And so the SEI camp was one of the best, hands down, in my opinion. But it was also available for anybody that wanted it, right? You didn't have to.
There was always some weak dudes at camp.
Right. I mean, I remember Jack Ramsey camp and Larry Steele camp that I knew kids that went to, but I didn't have $500 in the 80s to go to these camps, right? And so that was a huge piece for SEI, right? And so when I look back at the landscape, what wasn't there, right? So there wasn't, 20 AAU teams that are traveling, right? Those things didn't exist. There wasn't a robust summer league going around. I mean, even within, the schools going, there was some summer league, but not huge like it is now. And so if you look now, it's almost a year-round thing of basketball, and that just wasn't the case. And so, for years, I think we struggled, right? Because as the basketball landscape changed, we didn't change. We had the same week that we were expecting kids to do this SEI basketball camp. And so I also think, and I'm not one of those dudes that say, well, back in my days, people were tougher. Back in my day, a lot of that is corny, right? A lot of that is just, the older I get, the colder I was, right? That's a lot of that is out there. But I will say that the mentality of I'm the best and I just hoop is different, right? And so the best players back then would, take their ball and go from park to park to park. Who won it, right? I'm ready to get down at any point with anybody. Most importantly, I want to hoop. I love the game. Now you got hoopers, that consider themselves at the top level that won't play outside.
Yeah,
They won't play in uncontrolled settings. They're only in gyms. They got trainers. They got, all, 4 and 5 people around them that tell them, no, don't go here. These dudes is weak. And it's like, that was never the case back then.
And for me, I think that's kind of one of those things that's really kind of killed, basketball, especially high school basketball. Is, I was talking to Michael Lee the other day, and the one thing we were saying is, like, there at a point, there was a guy at every single school. There was a guy all over the place, but all those guys are willing to meet you at Irvin if that's where everybody was hooping. All those guys are willing to meet you at Lawhurst if that's where everybody was hooping. There'll be beautiful days outside, and I don't see kids playing basketball. But more than that, let me ask you this. You got kids of your own, one middle school kids. When was the last time you saw a group of kids playing outside, playing anything outside?
It don't go down like that. It's weird.
It almost doesn't happen.
They spoiled, man. They ain't hungry like that, and that's it's different.
Do you think we'll get back to a point to where there will be that competitive, especially let's just talk locally, just talk PIL, right? You know what I'm saying? There was to where every school from Franklin all the way over to Wilson, man, had a guy, you know what I mean? Had, or in some cases, had 2 guys, on their team. Do you think we'll ever, in this part of Portland, get back to a point to where, man, we've got guys that will now the 7 PIL schools that we have?
I guess by default it has to happen at some point, but I also think there's a couple things that happen that people might not pay attention to. The first thing, there's a population thing going on, right? There aren't as many kids living in the city now as there was back then. That's just the fact. Just the amount of people, right? Marshall stopped being Marshall not because it blew up. It was because they didn't have enough population to fill a school, right? So you all of a sudden you have enrollment issues at Benson. You got enrollment issues at these different places that were 1,000% packed, right? When we were in school. So there's just less kids already, right? And then for better or worse, I mean, we kind of believed that, right, playing sports was our ticket out of town, that's how we were going to make it, right?
Mhm.
And you couldn't tell us that we weren't going to make it, right? Because I mean, there's dudes that didn't start as juniors in high school that really thought they was about to get a scholarship at some point. Like it's not realistic at that point. But that didn't stop people from trying, and because that was kind of a narrow view. I think in a lot of ways the message has been made clear that there's other options besides sports. And so
Mhm.
if I'm not right at this elite level pretty early on, then I lose interest and I do other things. And so I don't necessarily think that that's negative, uh, as long as people are, active and doing something else, because for everybody that ball's going to stop bouncing at some point anyway. And so I do think there's a lot of variables that go into it, but, and just to be real, I mean, it's a different day too, with all the extra transferring, right, that goes
Yeah.
on, where it's like, instead, I mean, there's people that you just asked the question, would every school have its goon? Well, if people didn't transfer, they might, right? But what we do is like, this is the spot, so let's all us go over here, right? And even though I live across the street from Franklin, I'm going to Jeff, I'm going to Grant, I'm right, whatever that may be. So I think there's parts of that too, where and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying that that's the mood, right? It's like I'd rather be a part of these powerhouses than to be the guy carrying the rock and getting it all done over here, and me being the one. So I think that is part of the change.
One of those kids that decided to stay close to home and didn't transfer to his school far away was your son, Aaron Deloney.
Mm-hmm.
He blossomed into a hell of a basketball player by the time he reached, like, I want to say his sophomore year. He went from
Mm-hmm.
small guard to like, who the hell is this kid that can shoot like that?
Mm-hmm.
For you, when was your aha moment as far as knowing that, okay, my son can hoop? This dude's kind of cold. Like this might be able to work.
He'll tell you that I was always, Damon Hickok coined the phrase "hater dad," right? I was always the one that I used to give him the story. It's like, hey man, ain't nothing worse than being the dude that fell off, right? I used to tell him those stories all the time. It's like, hey
There's
man,
tons of them. There's tons of them from Portland.
don't be the dude that nobody could beat in sixth grade, and you could barely dribble a ball by the time you was a junior in high school. So I think his progression. I mean, it wasn't like meteoric. I mean, it was a steady, right? I mean, he when he was in fifth grade, he wanted to be a fifth grader that could one of the best, but I could play up if I needed to. As a sixth grader, it was the same kind of thing. So he never had these huge, long, far out goals. A lot of it was, what do I need to get better at right now? And I think for him that's how he did it. But I think most of his stuff was, I think, his own inner drive, his own inner push that he hated to lose, right? He wasn't really big into talking, and this dude said this. So all the way coming up, it was always dudes that everybody else said was better than him. I mean,
Was
all over the place. And
was
so
there a game?
he say it again.
Was there a game that when you saw him play, that you were like, okay, this dude is it's not. You kind of forgot it was your son for a minute. Like, oh man.
I'll tell you, what it was when I was the coach of those ICP teams, right? Just to be frank, we didn't lose a whole bunch of Portland games, right? We had Portland on loud. I don't think we lost a Portland game. But when we used to go up to Seattle, oh man, Rotary. So
Yeah.
Rotary
Rotary's a
was,
great program. A
for
great
lack of
program.
people don't know, later Rotary is the standard in Northwest basketball. And so everybody told me, oh yeah, y'all good, but wait till you see Rotary. Wait till And so I think in fourth grade, man, we went up there, and it was our first time, and man, we beat Rotary, and people were shocked, right? People was looking at us like, man, who y'all beat Rotary? Like, yeah, man. And then there was a game. I wish I had it on tape. I might have to dig through. Man, I think tied up, couple inbounds plays. AD gets the ball in the corner, bow, hits the shot, and everybody rushed the court, and it was just like, man, this dude kind of, he wasn't nervous. I ain't never made one of those. And, and it was funny. I think I told him in 7th or 8th grade, I was like, congratulations. He was like, what? I said, on passing your dad's career point total in the 7th grade for my whole career. So
Be like that.
Right. It was always funny. But again, that for me was the moment that I saw that he had something a little special, because it wasn't being big. It wasn't the fastest. It wasn't the strongest, but it was something up here and just the way he approached the game that I knew that he might be able to do something special.
So one thing that I think every dad, especially dads, I know moms feel the exact same way probably, but definitely dads, man, you want your kid to be so much better than you, and you want them to be, man, a star. You really want to hope they have all those moments that either you had or you never got a chance, you only dreamed about. As a dad, what was it like to watch your son win the state championship? And something that, obviously you get 12 guys a year to get a chance to win a state championship for basketball. What was it like to be in the crowd in that gym that day, which was phenomenal, Jeff versus Grant, and watch your son walk away with the state championship? What was that like for you as dad?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I anybody that has kids will tell you, like, watching your kids play is more rewarding than anything you could ever do personally, right? That's your seed. That's the better parts of you out there. And so I knew what that represented for him. I knew what that represented for his teammates. I've shared a couple of times, like, if people knew all the things that they were told, there were people that they loved that told them, well, y'all gonna be cool, but you won't ever beat Jeff. Right. There was stuff like him and Froggy, they can't play together. Right. Like, these are like dudes that are like best friends, and people telling them what they can't do. And in fact, somebody even said, like, oh, them Grant dudes, they too soft, they too nice. And that's why I was like, they kind of,
that's usually the knock on us.
Those some jerks. Like, if people really knew like how they compete, not in, off the court, but on the court, I mean, they were as nasty as they came. And so for me, it was a justification for Aaron's approach, for the thought process about not transferring, about going to school with his friends, right? Because we always say, if you pick a school for a sport, that's tough, because football season is only 2 months. Right? Basketball season is 2.5, right? So I got to be stuck at this
It's real
school.
boring in Monmouth. Yeah.
Man, I got to be
boring
stuck,
in Monmouth,
right?
Just saying.
So I think, watching that was, a highlight, definitely as a dad, but more importantly for what I knew it meant to him and his friends. And so I was just happy to play my role in being able to do whatever I could. And so it was tremendous.
How happy when you and your wife found out the college was going to be free?
Bruh. Everything I love.
I'm thinking about, man, how do we get this scholarship, bro?
So listen, like, the people always ask about the process and all these schools. Like, I didn't care about none of them. I cared when we got the first offer. Once the first offer came, it was like,
this will be good. We'll be fine.
My work is done here, right? My work is done here, because at the end of the day, that was the goal, for somebody else to pay for this. And I knew he wanted to play at that level. And so, but I'll tell you what, there was a lesson. And I saw, I know I'm going to butcher it, but John Morant's dad had said something, and I shared it with AD, but it was the point of it is, right, you can't necessarily go to the school that you love, right? You got to go to the school that loves you.
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end of the day, right, you can like all these other things. Well, Kentucky didn't call, bro. You know what I'm saying? Arizona didn't call. And so out of these, people that love you, right, these are your choices.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Because
you want to be where you're wanted.
Right? Because it's a cutthroat thing. And that if you came and I really wasn't feeling you, right, I'm not about to sit here and watch you struggle. as a freshman. I'm not about to sit here and watch you figure
Real
this
easy
out.
to move on from those guys.
Let me go get somebody that I really love.
Yeah.
And so when you find a team and a coach that loves you, they're invested in your development that much more. And so that was one of the things that led Aaron to Vermont.
Well, I know he's doing great things. Got a chance to play in the Garden this year. You know, something that, again, most people only dream of is being able to do that. Another thing people only dream of is being able to have some type of media outlet to where they can get their own content, their own stuff out. You, the co-founder of the Numberz, man. First off, I want you to go ahead and tell everyone, yes, I am responsible for you being into radio. It's okay to tell everybody.
Facts. You put me on. Rashad was the first to say, "Hey, man, come on to the fan." That's 1,000% true. 1,000% true.
Well, that was hyperbole, but I will absolutely take it. But I want
1,000% true. And
man,
so
and you know, I'll tell you this: you did a great job. I remember my program director almost says nothing to me ever when I have people from the community on, because I'm real. Sometimes they suck. Sometimes they're just okay. You know what I mean? But there have been 3 people that he's been like, I like that. I liked him. One was you mentioned him, Damon Hickok, my guy Scott, and then you the most. I think you've been on 3 times at this point?
Yeah, 3 or 4 actually.
So you're basically just another host of that show. But
it's funny because, I mean, I'm always so nervous, you know what I'm saying, when I get on there. But once I get in that room and it's just us talking about stuff we always talk about. And it always goes by so fast.
And by the time, like, we've been talking for 40 minutes, you know what I'm saying? Just about stuff. But what was the motivation for you behind the Numberz? Because, you know, it's Black radio for Black people, for Black Portland. And that's not something we've really seen since 1480. And the signal on that is so small now, it's almost impossible to listen to at 1480. So why was it so important to you to really, man, put forth this effort for the Numberz?
Well, I'll give the quick story. Jefferson Smith, Grand High.
Shout out to Jefferson Smith.
That's my guy, Jefferson. You know, he was running X-Ray Radio at the time, and he'd always have these little mixes and different DJs on, and he'd drop me a line like, "Hey, listen to this," and, you know, cool, dope, right? And you know, he hit me one day, and he was like, "You know, we should really do a hip hop station." And, you know, this ain't that long ago. I'm 45 at the time, and I'm like, "Hey, bro, yeah, no." I mean, right? I'm like, what I look like trying to start a hip hop station. So I
every other rich Jewish dude in the world.
Come on, man. Right? So I wasn't interested at all. But if you go back to the beginning of our conversation, we talked about gentrification of Portland and what's so much different now than what it was. And so I grew up in a Portland where it was connected, right? Where, you know, people would, you know, pull up to a park and park their cars in the middle of the street and talk it up. And you knew when you left, you was about to run into 10, 15 people just off site that you just, man, that's my guy, that's my people, that's my woo, right? And I miss that Portland, right? You know, you could go to the barber shop and see the homies.
Don't mention barbershops right now, bro.
Right?
Don't mention the barbershops right now.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother issue, right?
It's customers right now.
But for us, I think that was my mindset. And so I went back to Jefferson. I said, well, listen, I'm not interested in doing a hip hop station. Well, what I am interested in doing is a community building station, right? And if we play hip hop, that's part of it, right? But you know, let's even take hip hop, because, you know, somebody at some point told us that that's our music, like that's our like our only form of music. And I was like, well, slow down. Don't get me wrong. I love hip hop, but I love R&B, right? I love some gospel. I love it's a combination. And so what I said was, let's make this a let's make this a Black music experience, right? Because ultimately, I really didn't care that much about what music was on. I cared about bringing people together. Right. So if this song makes you come on board, and this song makes you come on board, and this song makes you come on board, I'm fine with that. Now I got something to tell you. Did you know that you can own a home? Right? Did you know that they're hiring at the post office? Did you know, right, that here's some things that you can do to be more healthy?
And that's one of the things I love most.
And that was the point.
That's one of the things I love most about the Numberz is
Yeah.
And it is like it's almost like a community resource, you know,
Yeah.
sitting on top of that, because there are those places that, man, do you not have medical? Do you need this or do you need this? Like these are the people you need to kind of talk to. And I think that's the part, you know, radio is one of those things, and somebody's working the radio, you know, people are just trying to sell stuff most of the time. It's the biggest way of still reaching people, more than Facebook, more than people, more at least people listen to radio and satellite radio and all that jazz all the time. So being able to sell stuff. So I love the idea of you guys really putting out resources that, man, people can use and people are able to really reach out and find, especially right now during a pandemic like this. One of the other things I love about the Numberz is your playlist selection. I love the fact that you found people in the community from, you know, from Miss Libra Ford to Sam Thompson, a bunch of people that are doing some great things here in this community, and you picked their little playlist and made sure you gave people kind of an insight, because you can tell a lot from somebody by their playlist and what they're listening.
Right.
I love the fact that you kind of put that up there. What was the mindset behind kind of just reaching out as opposed to getting a DJ to just play the random stuff over and over again?
Well, I think you hit it on the head, right? In that, in our early development, we don't have a DJ to lock up in a booth, right? And say, man, spin 24/7. So what we have to do is take a weakness and figure out a way to make it a strength. And so the idea really, I mean, it comes from, I remember seeing this way back when Apple, iTunes first came out, right? And if you got an iPhone, you automatically got like this like U2 song or something crazy like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so as I was clicking on it, I saw like Bono, like here's the lead singer of U2 and here's his playlist. Here's the thing, here's what he listens to. And I just thought it was interesting. Like, oh man, he like Biggie, right? So it made me think about who is this dude, right? It's almost like storytelling where and I love a story. I don't care what it was. I remember remember the show Behind the Music on
I
VH1?
loved it.
It
One of
was
my
like,
favorites.
yeah, right. It was a great show. I remember flipping one of the first times I saw it. They were like doing Leonard Skinner. And I was like, man, I don't know nothing about no Leonard Skinner. This is some hillbilly music. But the story was so dope. Like they made big plane wrecks and all kind of stuff. And I was like, bro, I didn't know this. And so I've always thought the stories behind the music were equally as fascinating. And that was kind of the thought process. It's like, how can we get dope people, right, to give us the thing that, you know, that they lift weights in the morning, right, that they listen to when they're studying, that they get motivated to, you know, to go work out, whatever those things are. We want to know that, because you might not like, right, the person, or excuse me, you might not like the music, but you love that this person is dope to me, and these are the things that help fuel them. Maybe I can get something out of that. And more than anything else, it's another way to bring people together. So it's something we kind of stumbled on. It's kind of been our stamp on a lot of the stuff that we do, and it's working well for us.
A couple of those dope people that are actually working with you are two people that I guess on the party scene here in Portland are kind of legends. They're Mike Morris and Kevin Barry. You know what I mean? They playing, especially for the quote unquote older crowd, you know, here in Portland. And how important to go find those guys to make sure they could have some content to kind
of. They're the lifeblood of what we do, right? That was the first thing that we did, you know. And before we even had the community playlist, we were like, let's find the dopest DJs out here. Who are the ones that make it work? I mean, OG1,
shout out to
OG1,
OG1, absolutely.
Right, all those guys. And so they submitted stuff, and they, you know, they don't get paid. This was like, hey, and I always would say, hey man, make sure y'all shout yourselves out in there with contact information. If you like what you're feeling, call me and I'll DJ it for it, because I wanted them to be able to get something out of it. But at the end of the day, I think they understood the movement. And so, you know, those guys have been with us from the very start, and without those core DJs, man, this doesn't exist the way it exists now. So it's shout out to them.
What's your ultimate goal overall with the Numberz, man? What is it that you want to make sure that we kind of accomplish over the next, let's say, 2 years or so?
That's a great question. You know, when I see, I've been asked this a couple of times in terms of, right, when I see the numbers at full capacity in terms of influence, right? What are we doing? People's lives are changing based on information that they heard on the Numberz, right? That I was able to, man, first of all, hear some cuts, feel good about what's going on, but then get some information,
Right.
right, that I just didn't have before. And so I think that changes all the time. So if you would have asked me 2 months ago, I would have said, man, to make sure that, there's more Black home ownership, there's more Black business and entrepreneurs based on the information that they heard on the numbers. If you ask me today, I would say, man, that Black people are healthy, right? That Black people in North and Northeast Portland and from the north to the Numbers and everywhere in between, right? That aren't dying from COVID, right? Right. There's all of a sudden health is a huge piece. And more than anything else, I want our people, because again, traditionally we're the last to know. Right. Traditionally, we hear the message that somebody is giving us, right? And in a pecking order, we're the last ones. And so our goal is to find that information and give it to you now. We don't have to ask permission. I don't have to call New York to say, hey, man, can I run this ad on the importance of staying healthy and washing your hands and right, putting this mask on and all that. I don't have to ask permission. Right, we can tell our people directly. And so my thing is that we're a healthier, happier community that's thriving instead of just surviving.
Well, man, you're doing amazing things here in this community. I've been, again, somebody that I've considered really a mentor of mine, professionally and stuff for a bit. So I definitely appreciate you coming on. Real quick, man, what you got going on that's dope right now?
Ooh, I got some stuff. We're gonna have to do part 2. I got some heat, but I can't reveal it right now. I always got something going. But I'll just share that I'm actually starting my 25th year at SEI.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Which is exciting. Love for my home base. That will always be my home base. But a lot of great things coming down the pipe, and I would just say stay tuned for part 2 because it's coming.
That's what's up, man. Well, I appreciate you again, Deloney. Thank you so much for joining me. And man, part 2 is soon, man.
Hey, man, you gonna edit this, right? It was hella long. Like, nobody want to hear me talk for an hour.
Everybody wants to hear you talk for an hour, man. But we gonna see what's up. There'll be some clips and some other stuff, but we'll see.
With some hot beats in the back, you know what I'm saying? So,
we got all that stuff. I got all that stuff, man. You see, I went and got lights. Look, you can't see them. I got a light here. I got another one here. Like, yeah,
right.
Man, I got some stuff to put in the background here. I got some pictures and stuff. So yeah, with the next couple of days, Amazon, they're going slow, but we'll
Rashad, hey man, I'm proud of you, bro. Keep it up. Keep doing your thing. Y'all don't understand. Whenever I see, former students and former players and employees blow up and grow up, man, that's the stuff that keeps me going. So man, please keep it up. It fuels my fire and makes me keep doing what I'm doing. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, my dude. Anytime, and we're going to get that part 2 going soon.
All right, fam.
All right, man. Anthony Deloney, and Director of Strategic Initiative for Self-Enhancement Incorporated. Man, that's definitely my guy, man. Like, he's somebody that I've had, kind of in my corner for a long time. And I'm super, super glad that he was able to come on and share That's Dope with us. But we're going to wrap it up. Appreciate y'all for joining me as always. For Rashad Taylor, I'm Rashad Taylor, I should say. For my guy, Anthony Deloney. I'll talk to y'all soon, man. That's dope.